because I had a 75 Camaro, and I was watching TV one night, and they advertised a Camaro Berlinetta, and they were offering a $700 rebate. So I went down the Bumsteads, told him what I wanted, and the salesman looked at me and he says, well, the Berlinetta is a luxury model. You're not going to get it with T-top, spoiler, or mag wheels. But he went on the computer, because back then computers only went between dealerships. People didn't have personal computers then. And he found this over at the Paula Chevrolet when they were on State Street in Schenectady. So we sneaked over, took a look at the car. I called the salesman back at Bumsteads, and they got it for me.
Really?
And then 3 years ago, he was the nicest salesman I had ever dealt with. So 3 years ago, I started looking in the phone book because I knew he had lived in Cohoes, and I knew he was retired probably. So I called all these, his name was Roger McKay. I called a lot of McKays, and I finally got a hold of his grandson. And I said, well, I bought a car from your grandfather. I bought a car from Bumsteads in 1981. I still have that car 36 years later. And he said, well, that's my grandfather. He said he lives in Florida now. So I said, well, here's my name and number. If you talk to your grandfather, have him give me a call. So that night the phone rang, and it was Roger McKay, and he was vacationing up in Warrensburg at the time.
Oh, really?
So we set up a date and drove up there a couple of weeks later, and he saw the car, took pictures of it. I had all my original paperwork, and he made copies of it all, and he said, how many salesmen can claim someone's still driving a car that he had sold them? So.
And you said that this is a Survivor. This is unrestored. This is as it was when you bought
it. Yeah, the paint job, everything's all original. Yeah.
And how many years did you use it as a daily driver?
I drove it from 81 till 1987, and then I bought a Trans Am. It's
a nice car too.
Yeah. And now I have a 2016 Ford Mustang GT. So I've had I've had two Camaros, two Firebirds, and I have a Mustang, and he inherited a Mustang 2010 from his brother. So
okay.
So currently we have two Fords and two Chevys at our home.
And this are the mag wheels, the original magnesium wheels and everything?
I drove this car.
He said you can't get a car like that in the Berlinetta. Because it's
right.
They're girly cars. You know.
But
he found this. He says, "Oh my God, I lied. Here's one."
The only thing I added to it were these. Other than that, I drove it off the lot just the way.
And like you said a little while ago that you actually put a bag of sand and you drove this in the winter.
Yes, I did. I had studded snow tires, and I put a bag of sand in there for weight and traction. And
brave.
Had a separate set of snow tires and wheels.
You said you had some cool stories that you could say about it.
Yeah, it's been in a.
Oh, you hit by a deer?
Yeah, we got hit by a deer about 6 years ago.
Oh,
coming over Route 2. He ran out of the woods right into the side of the car.
He hit right around here. There isn't a mark anywhere. All it was fur stuck in the trim. And that was it.
Because they don't make cars like this anymore.
Luckily, you hear a glancing blow.
Then when I used to drive it daily, I was going to work one morning, and it's in December. It was rainy, it was foggy, and it was dark. And I came down from where I live. I had a right-hand turn on a green arrow, and I went around the turn, and there was a guy stalled in the middle of the road with no lights. And I tried to avoid him, but I caught him with my right front fender, and I pushed him up over the curb. He had a Toyota, and the back end of it folded up like that. And I was afraid to get out to see what I did to my car, but the only thing, got a few digs and dings, and this was not.
This is cracked at the top.
Yeah, and the headlight was.
So that's all the damage it did, huh?
And it broke.
All right. So how long have you had it for?
Since 2003. Got it in California. Spent a year looking for one because I didn't want to do a restoration. I just wanted to build and drive it. So I've been driving it pretty constantly for 20 years. Only this year has it been a bit of a pain. Everything seems to have gone at once. Carburetor rebuild, new master cylinder, radiator, stuff like that. So it's a bit expensive this year. But other than that, she's been a sweetheart.
What drove you to this particular?
Well, I've always had a thing for Italian cars, and I used to be an Alpha guy. Then I read this article in a British car magazine in 1996, and the guy they were interviewing was like the head mechanical expert of the Rolls-Royce Club in England. He was asked, other than Rolls-Royce, he said, what were the best cars? He said, any Lancia. So I said, oh, that's interesting. And then there was an article about the small sedan called the Appia, which it had a little 1000cc motor, but it was just the coolest car I've ever seen. And even with that, it could cruise all day at about 75 miles an hour. And I said, well, I must have one. So I spent a good 2 years trying to find one, track one down that was in good shape and what I could afford. And this was it. It was in San Diego.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, did you go out and check it out, or did you buy
No,
a set?
I paid someone to look at it.
Okay.
And they checked it out and said it was okay. And they were right. It's okay. It's run fine from day one.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. What else would I? What have you done other than a carburetor rebuild?
Oh, let's see. The master brakes, master cylinder went. One day I was going to take her out, my foot went right to the floor. I said, well, we have a problem. And the ball joints in the front. I mean, the car is pushing 50, so you should expect that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's actually really not bad. You're looking at just general maintenance.
Yes,
really.
as a rule, yes, general maintenance. Well, Lancia's been often called the Italian Mercedes-Benz. They had not much of a profile here in the U.S. because their cars are very expensive. This car in 1971 was the same price as a Corvette with a 327. So we're talking in the $4,500 range. And no American is going to spend $4,500 in a car with a 1300cc four-cylinder engine. No
Right.
American's going to do that. So they never did well in America, even when they came back when Fiat bought the company out in 1970. And basically, they stayed their own division for a very long time. Very successfully rallying.
Yes.
Which is called the first, of course, famous one is the Stratos, followed by the 037. But the really successful one was the Delta Integrales, which were they had to make in order to qualify to rally, had to make 1,000 of them. So what Fiat Lancia did was make 1,000 race cars. the cars, they had a four-cylinder supercharged and turbocharged four-cylinder engine, 2 liters, put on about 300 horses. Full-time four-wheel drive. It was completely aluminum body. The body had about the thickness of Reynolds wrap, but it was 1,000 of them were made. And they were just absolutely fantastic little cars. In fact, until recently, even though they stopped rallying them in '96, they still have the record for most world rallying championship wins up until a few years ago. I guess Citroën passed them, but they won over 100 rallies at one time or another and 13 world championships, like at one point 6 in a row. So
Oh,
in
wow.
Europe. It's absolutely a fabulous little car. It literally rides on rails, and it's also a front-wheel drive car. Has a V4 motor, 1,300 cc's, puts out about 100 horse, and the angle of the V is about 12, 13 degrees, so the whole motor is shifted over, not at a 45-degree angle to the transaxle. It's like the Slant 6, but instead of just basically the top of the motor, the entire motor is tipped over on its side. It's also the first production car that have standard a 5-speed gearbox. I love this car.